The Wasteland. Hello friends. The poem The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot was published in 1922. Divided in 5 parts, this poem portrays the life of London, though the poet also makes a wonderful attempt to sketch the desert and sea spread across the world to touch the new high of literature. This poem reflects the scholarly approach of the poet that depicts the depressed and pathetic life of London and leaves new dimensions of poetry forever. One could notice a wonderful mix of different forms and traditions of poetry. In this poem of Eliot, one could also notice a fine blend of the different pieces of literature such as the Bible, Shakespeare, St. Augustine, and Hindu and Buddhist sacred texts, French poetry, Wagnerian opera, and King Arthur's story. It is a highly modern poem in which we also find jazz music, gramophone, motorcar, typist, and tins of processed food. Some critics have called it a literary masterpiece which speaks of tortured souls, whereas some have called it a poem written in modern style. Despite such criticisms, it is hailed as the most impressive literary piece of the 20th century. This poem depicts the vacuum in the life of people of London after the First World War. Events related to the war allude to social, psychological, and emotional decline in the life of the people. Lil, the mother of 5 children, has had an unhappy marriage about which she talks to her friend at a pub in London, which shows that there is no happiness in people's life and there is no affection and depth in human relationships. There is absence of spiritualism in people's life. The typist in The Fire Sermon is a standing example. Her job is only to write and repeat what people say. She goes back to her home to consume food that comes processed in tin cans. Her sex life is mechanical and routine, which Eliot portrays wonderfully through regular quatrains. The music she listens to after her lover goes away is quite different from the one that Ferdinand had heard on the magic island in Shakespeare's play The Tempest. According to the poet, modern life does not have any charm and has become meaningless. In this poem, one senses the comparative study of different religions as written by James Fraser in his book The Golden Bough. Eliot portrays the story of Fisher King as an allegory for modern world. Fisher King is wounded in his loin, due to which his rule over his kingdom is affected. The once fertile land has stopped growing crops and it has turned into a wasteland. Fisher King's spiritual sickness and the cure for his wasteland lies in that cup which Christ had used at the Last Supper, where Joseph had taken Christ's blood before his crucifixion at the cross. Eliot asks whether there is anyone in modern world who could do so. In his poem, Eliot speaks of Fire Sermon in Buddhism, which says that one had to give up one's worldly desires in order to be eligible to attain spiritual enlightenment. The poem begins with a heap of broken images and ends with quotations from different poems. Even the nursery rhyme, London Bridge is falling down, forms the part of Eliot's poem. The poet feels that art, literature, and verbal and written literature are in danger. The ending of the poem appears vague, in which the Sanskrit word Shanti has been repeated thrice, which Eliot translates as the peace which passes understanding. Has this peace been attained, or is it only a figment of imagination? The quotations following the poem only mean that such peace after the war is only a dream. Thank you.